Well, hello, Dr. Sarah. Welcome to the show. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Vanessa.
It's an absolute pleasure. And as we've been speaking, I think that this conversation is going to be awesome. I think that we have so much to tackle, and it's going to be really enlightening, not just for the audience, but I think for me as well. So I am extra excited to have this conversation, and I cannot wait just to get into everything HRT because there are so many questions, as you and I have discussed. It's going to be great. So, again, this is a very loud conversation. This is something where I think everybody has an opinion on today. I think there are very extreme opinions that float around the health space, the alternative health space, the functional health space, and really the conventional health space as well. And so as we get into it, I would love to hear just a little bit of a brief background on, why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you here? What got you to this place? And why is this your focus or your passion?
Yeah, I've been doing longevity and hormone replacement therapy for almost 10 years now. And I started doing it. I was a pathologist before, really minding my own business until I started going through perimenopause myself. I mean, I had my child and I was 35 and the wheels fell off the bus. Looking back, I probably always struggled with hormone issues, like even in my 20s. And I think a lot of women can even express that feeling of knowing that you kind of always had some issues going on. I tried everything, right? So I got into a functional medicine approach. I tried everything from my diet restriction, a lot of tests, a lot of different supplements. I tried every hormone replacement therapy on the product on the market and realized that nothing is designed for a 35-year-old. The problem is not that I understood that it was hormonal, it's just that the products were never ever built to make a 35-year-old feel like I wanted to feel, which was young and vibrant. All of them were built for 51 and above. They're built for menopause and postmenopausal women. So any younger woman who's even considering hormone replacement therapy and wanted to try it, it wouldn't work for her. Like you literally, it's like spitting into the ocean because it's not designed for her. So once I realized that there was nothing there for me, I built what didn't exist. And it's something, a product that I wish I had in my 20s. So in other words, like, why can't we approach women's hormone replacement therapy the same way we approach men's? And we're outdated, like 10 years behind men's hormone replacement therapy and longevity practices. So Inner Balance is the company that I started 3 years ago, and this is to bring this to the masses. Like I treated patients in Idaho and Utah for a long time doing this, and now it's online in 50 states. So really giving this option to all women. It's not just menopausal and postmenopausal women, but perimenopausal women, women with endometriosis, PCOS, other hormonal issues where these other formulations wouldn't work for them.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I very much, like I mentioned in the beginning, I wanted to have this conversation because I think that women are being pulled largely in two directions. And I think that they oftentimes wait until either something is super unbearable to do something about it. And I don't necessarily think that that's all their fault in a way, because I think the system has sort of projected that message to do so. Or, it's like they are just terrified of trying anything. And so they just don't, or they just don't know where to go or what to do. And I think that there's just so much mixed messaging. And you said something that I have written down that I actually want to explore with you a little bit, which is why is the research so behind when it comes to women? Because in my mind, when I think about hormones, like women's health comes to the forefront of my brain, right? Like I don't think like, oh yeah, they're really exploring men's hormonal health and women are so far behind. But you've definitely talked about how women's health is like really far behind in terms of research. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. And you're right, women are being told to wait. So for example, why do we treat hormone replacement therapy like it's the last resort? Like when it should be a foundational. It's one of the most natural things we can do. And so we'll replace peptides, we'll do thyroid, we'll literally do every other thing. We'll even give you a GLP-1 injection before we replace your hormones. Why is this the thought? When hormones are essentially the messengers of the body, nothing will function without it. None of your peptides will work. None of your supplements will work. None of your diet and exercise won't work if hormones aren't in place. And so women just need to kind of change the way they think about them. We don't wait to replace vitamin D. Like if you're vitamin D deficient, you start taking vitamin D. Vitamin D is a hormone. We take thyroid hormone if you're deficient. Why do we have this bias towards estrogen and progesterone for women? And it is part of it's tied to the studies that are lacking, for example, but a lack of evidence does not mean a lack of science or a lack of reason to do it. We've excluded women from studies for many years. Like they were only included in trials. A lot of the drugs that are on the market were designed for men, for example. Even iPhones are designed for men. Like if you ever try to put one in your hand, like a tiny female hand, like it's not made for you. Cars were not designed for women. We're like the default sex, which is inappropriate. I mean, even in medicine, we say that an atypical presentation of a heart attack is what females present at. And I'm like, well, if it's 50% of the population, is it atypical? It's actually a normal thing. So we just need to start looking at women as a different species that we are, as opposed to treating them like they were tiny men. We treat women like we're just a small man. And we even look at libido that way. Like, hey, we'll just give her a little tiny bit of testosterone and she'll get a libido. When our libido is way more complicated than just a little bit of testosterone. So women have, and it could be cultural, like a society where women continuously are suppressed, right? There is some suppression, there's misogyny, there's sexism, there's this wanting to control women's bodies, is very prevalent and still. And hormone replacement therapy is no different. Even women want to control other women and what they do with their bodies. When we have always known that hormone replacement therapy did not cause cancer. So why is so much fear? Why is this? Why, I just asked, like, I think it's a good question. Why does medicine practice fear-based medicine and not science-based medicine when it comes to hormone replacement therapy for women? It's still based on fear. Hey, we're going to give you a tiny dose of estrogen and we're going to wait until your period stops, and your period has to be stopped for an entire year. And we're only going to give you enough estrogen because it's dangerous. But yet your entire life, the estrogen is protecting you. And it's all based on fear, because we know the science is that estrogen is largely protective. And actually, if you get breast cancer while you're taking hormone replacement therapy, your chances of dying reduced by 40%, almost 50%. So it is protective against things like breast cancer, but yet the practice does not reflect the science. It is still based on fear. And could this just be this internal bias that doctors and healthcare providers are not willing to admit that they are biased against women, and women are still even against ourselves? And that is the crux of the problem. And part of the problem too is birth control. So a lot of the studies are based around 300 types of different birth control that Big Pharma pays for these studies because they get to patent these prescriptions. They get to patent the birth control, and then they're motivated to do the study. Nobody makes money off of a bioidentical hormone that naturally occurs in nature. We can't patent it, and therefore we're not going to have a lot of studies around it. I mean, there's only 5 papers, 5, in the entire world on progesterone reference intervals. So like, what is your optimal reference interval for a female for progesterone? It doesn't even really exist. Like, nobody's asked that question, but we have hundreds, almost thousands of papers on testosterone and its optimal reference interval for both men and women. And it's not the primary hormone for women. And so progesterone is our primary hormone, and we don't even know what your optimal level is supposed to be. It's embarrassing. Like, so the science community should be embarrassed about the lack of evidence in research or thought, or why isn't, if birth control, for example, worked for endometriosis, then it would be eradicated because we're giving everybody birth control. But yet this question is not being answered by the science community. So there's no question that we're just treated like small men and ignored. And this is unfortunate. It's changing, right? The pendulum is starting to swing. But women need to know that the lack of research or the lack of evidence for younger women. So even when you look at the menopausal research, it's menopausal research. It is if your period has stopped for a year or more, which excludes anybody over the age under the age of 50. We have no study. Like, if you're not trying to get pregnant or you're not menopausal, we're basically telling you don't matter, in terms of a science. Like, we're not going to study you. And that's all these women between the ages of 30 and 50. That's a huge gap in the literature. And women between the ages of 30 and 50 need to understand that just because the study doesn't exist doesn't mean that this doesn't make sense for you, right? So we need to kind of stop saying, well, where's the clinical trial? Well, nobody's going to fund a multi-million-dollar clinical trial. Like, you need to know that there's enough evidence and science and support, that we can extrapolate into your case, even though you're only 30, for example.
Yeah, wow. I mean, my face through that whole explanation was just kind of so up and down, right? Like, if you guys aren't watching me, I mean, I'm sitting here just going, wow. I mean, I'm not shocked because nothing shocks me. But to be honest with you, it's kind of a shame when you explain it and when you sort of outline it that way, because you wouldn't think it would be so not just behind, but what comes to my head or what comes to my mind, honestly, is that there's just such a, when you pointed to it, there's such a, it seems to be a bigger agenda behind it all. And that point about fear, I think is very, very crucial because if the conglomerates, at hand, if they can sort of control women's health, then they can not control, but also make so much money off of it, then they can really control so much. Because I think there's just, you think about what would change if money and resources were directed towards something like this, right? Like the world would definitely change.
You nailed it. Like we would actually have a healthy population of women. Like right now, women are suffering and they're getting antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, sleep meds. Women take the bulk of statins for heart disease. We take blood pressure medication. I mean, when you start layering on 5 to 10 different pharmaceuticals, there's a large profit motive. And when you fear is the best way to control a population. Like, what are you talking about? And whether the control is really about control, but it's more just about making money because women spend the bulk of like the household income and they're going to spend money on Botox and fillers in their skin and their hair and like a lot of anti-aging stuff, not to mention like just feeling better. And women need to understand that there is motive behind and profit behind them. And if they were to take control and say, hey, well, you could get 80 to 90% of your skin and your hair and your sleep and your anxiety and your mood with something like hormone replacement therapy that can cost you less than $100 a month or $100 a month. Okay, so if you heard that saying, when you treat the women in the family, you treat the whole family. Like we need to remember that women are taking care of everybody else and stop making them so sick. Like our women, I see women in their early 20s who have hormone levels of a 90-year-old. And yes, we do have a crisis for like younger women with really heavy, painful periods. We're putting them on birth control. And is this the woman that's turning into the 25-year-old that has endometriosis now because we put her on birth control at 15 for heavy periods? I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying we should question it, and then I'm saying like here we have pesticides and plastics and phthalates that are really, really prevalent in the environment and in our food. And they bind to the estradiol receptor. They disproportionately impact women. They're not impacting men. This is like something that we should be worried about as a culture that we're doing to women. And women are sick. Like they have mental illness. Like without our hormones, we really suffer. Men, I don't think they feel their symptoms as severely. I'm not trying to downplay their experience because they have an experience too. But I would say that women, we really can't function. Like we have a lot of brain fog. Like we can't like become our elevated like self without the hormones in place. And if we're doing it to women. We're basically making them afraid of the things that will help them. We're telling them that the enemy is within. Hey, your estrogen is killing you. It's giving you cancer. It's making you fat. It's causing all these problems in you. You need to lower your estrogen. And we even give them supplements to lower their estrogen. I mean, even the medical community who's trying to help women is still making them fear the very thing that they need to make them better. So, and it's not just estrogen, it's things like iodine and natural supplements that we really do need to be taking. So there is motive for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It seems to be. I would really like you to expand because I'm sure there's already probably a lot of questions swirling around in everyone's minds because they're just going, wait a second, hold on, hold on. When we talk about like root cause issues, okay, which is really like, and I told you I was going to challenge you because I've also thought this, and I really want you to go into the fact that you absolutely are firm standing on the fact that hormones are like an upstream regulator, right? Like, and what does that mean from a functional perspective beyond what you've said? So like as an example, there are so many women out here, whether they're in their 30s or 40s or 50s, who are chasing like healing with other things, quote unquote, okay? Other things like gut health and mood and weight loss. That's a huge one. Maybe they're just, they're trying and they're spinning their wheels and they're going in circles and they're taking the supplements. And I mean, I'm somebody who takes supplements too, I mean, I'm putting myself in this category, whether they're in their 30s or 40s, like I said. So can you speak to why you feel like hormones really are the driver? Because there are a lot of people that are saying they're not the driver. There's root causes underneath that.
Yeah. This is also motivated by money. I mean, functional medicine doctors, this approach is great. We should get to the root cause of the gut health and the mood and everything, and we should still have it. The problem becomes when the functional medicine approach claims to replace the hormone replacement therapy approach. When they basically say that we'll treat your hormones when we treat your leaky gut, it'll balance your hormones. When we lower your cortisol, you're going to balance your hormones. And this claim is unfounded and actually inappropriate. And it's pushing women further away from like the help that they need. Functional medicine approach should complement longevity and hormone replacement therapy. They should be done together. And I'll say what I mean. So for example, you cannot heal your hormones and bounce back your hormones as a 35-year-old if you heal your leaky gut, because your leaky gut is being caused by your lower hormones. Hormones dictate how much the gallbladder works, how motile, like the motility of the gut, mucin production, microbiome function, zonulin production. Everything is dictated by hormones. Again, they are the master regulators of the body. GLP-1 doesn't actually even function unless estradiol is present, and this is true for both sexes, both men and women. This is why men need estrogen as well, and men lose weight with estrogen. But yet we tell everybody all day long that you're gaining weight because your estrogen's high. Estrogen causes people to lose weight, not gain weight. And so even just this thought that hormones are doing something dangerous is wrong. Functional medicine approach, you can spin your wheels for years. I changed my diet, I lowered my cortisol, like I'm doing all these things, and I still feel terrible. You cannot lower your cortisol simply by like doing, and it's unpractical. You're telling a woman who has like several kids, maybe even several kids, a job, a relationship, she's really busy, to like, hey, you need to back off and not do as much. And even then, it's not successfully going to lower cortisol. What modulates cortisol production is estradiol, and then progesterone competes with the receptor for cortisol. So you're really going to effectively lower cortisol with hormone replacement therapy. The reason why it's elevated and high and not regulated is because your hormones are low. If somebody has autoimmunity, like Hashimoto's, and autoimmunity is a spectrum. It doesn't have to be defined by like, hey, you have rheumatoid arthritis or celiac or something. It can just be inflammation in the body. And this autoimmunity or this response to the body happens because hormones are low. The hormones get low first, and then you see the autoimmunity after. But yet everybody fixes the Hashimoto's, but they never address your hormones. They never address the underlying cause. Hormones modulate and boost the immune system, meaning estradiol and progesterone bind directly to B cells and T cells. They make sure they're in the right ratio. They make sure that they're functioning correctly. The immune system is one of the things in our body that requires the most energy. Mitochondrial support for the immune system is ginormous. And what dictates and boosts mitochondrial function? Estradiol. So like you don't even have enough energy to like run your immune system if you don't have estrogen present. So you can point out every single process in the body, blood pressure, maintenance of blood pressure, dictated by the receptors. Every process has estrogen and progesterone, estradiol and progesterone receptors on it, vasculature, the heart, the brain, breathing, I mean, maintaining muscle tone. I just can't even like go play through this entire list, but it's like, it's not just your reproductive system or your uterus and your breast. So when you try to make a claim that that your cause of your leaky gut and ignore hormones, you're ignoring like a very main part of the body that like essentially is like the CEO of the body. You're ignoring that. And eventually everybody ends up doing hormone replacement therapy. I think women on the call just need to remember, like, do you want to wait 5 years and try the functional medicine approach? Or you want to like go ahead and, if you are feeling multiple things at one time, anxiety, insomnia, high cortisol, and leaky gut, you don't have to be having hot flashes and vaginal dryness to be in perimenopause. And perimenopause doesn't really mean anything. It just means that your ovaries are not functioning the way that they should be in order to support your current needs. So if you're not sleeping and you're not able to like work out and gain the muscle that you want, or the bone health or the skin health that you want, your hormones are not optimal level. So why would you wait to replace that? Especially if you're actively, paying money for supplements and people to help you, and you're not going to do the foundational piece. So the idea is that you lay the foundation, the hormone replacement therapy, and then, so hormone replacement therapy doesn't solve everything. Like say you have a lot of bloating after you eat, you have a ton of bloating, and you know that there's something going on with your gut. You start hormone replacement therapy, sometimes it can get worse on hormone replacement therapy. And it's because of, we can get into that specific thing, but there are reasons why it gets worse. And you need to address that bloating still. And then you can take a functional medicine approach. Okay, how do we get the gallbladder to start working better? What kind of dietary changes do we need to make in order to like get rid of the bloating while the hormone replacement therapy helps? Because it will. But if you just do one without the other, if you just do all the supplements and all the gut healing and you never do the hormone replacement therapy, you're just going to chase it. Like it will never really truly get better. So you need to do them both. And I don't get bothered by the functional medicine approach. I get bothered when they say that this is the solution or this is the answer when that's really not true. And women are, and I think it's because, in my opinion, they don't know how. So we have zero training in medical school, like, right? So the functional medicine doctors, I would say, are better than conventional medicine. Of course, they're like learning it on their own. They're learning about getting to this root cause. I would say that they're some of the best doctors we have out there, but they still aren't trained in hormone replacement therapy. Even my colleagues who do hormone replacement therapy struggle with women. One, women are difficult. They have a period. The formulations, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the show, are not appropriate or designed for younger women. So even the tools that we have given functional medicine doctors do not work. So now we are expecting a functional medicine doctor to, even if they were to say, hey, you need to do hormone replacement therapy, we don't have the tool that the functional medicine doctor needs to give to that 30-year-old to make her better. Does that make sense? So it's all against them. I'm not against, I just think that they're trying to, why would you completely miss something so obvious as a deficiency in a hormone?
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. I don't necessarily think they're doing it on purpose. I think they probably have the best of intentions, but they might just not have the awareness or the skill because the training isn't there. That was excellent, by the way. And I was going to wait to ask you this question, but this is a great place to insert it. What do you have to say about the people who are the women who are thinking in this moment of the conversation? Well, this just seems like an appropriate or a natural aging process, right? Like the fact that we are dropping in this way, the fact that this is just the way that we are designed. Like what is wrong with that? And why is it something that we have to replace? Aren't there just things that we can do to mitigate that don't involve quote unquote replacement? Like what about that aging narrative? Or this is just the way that it is?
Sure. So our ancestors used to die when they were 35. And we had babies when we were teenagers, and now we're having babies in our 30s and living until we're 90. Just because something's natural doesn't mean it's better. And we are expected to perform into our 60s. So yeah, like our ancestors didn't have to perform or have like a functional brain and cognitive function well into their 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. And we want, like what we want, it's a matter of your goals. If you're okay with this aging, I wasn't. Like I was not okay feeling terrible or feeling like I was 80. And I didn't want to live like the next 50 years of my life like that. And we brush our teeth every day. Like, so like our teeth falling out, that's normal. That's what our answer is like, but we brush our teeth and stop that from happening. We take vitamins when they're low. We don't ignore the fact that we need to constantly have a good diet and exercise and keep up our bodies this way. Hormone replacement therapy is no different. It is foundational, just like a diet and exercise. Again, you're thinking it like when people say that, they're thinking of it as a medication. Yes, I get the approach that you don't want to take a medication forever, and that's not natural. But hormone replacement therapy are naturally occurring things in your body that you're replacing, just like a vitamin B or a deficiency in something that you need to replace. Um, and why is suffering just because it's natural better? So I don't agree with this. When you have the potential to stop and prevent heart disease, osteoporosis, Alzheimer's, dementia, just simply enjoying and living your life and like looking good and feeling good as you're aging, why, like, okay, so I just don't, I like you can poke a lot of holes in that argument of it being natural. It is natural. Again, estradiol and progesterone are naturally occurring in your body. I don't make turmeric. I don't make maca root. So, but a lot of these people will lean towards an herb. They'll say like, well, and this is what maybe our ancestors did and they chewed a bunch of maca root or whatever to get libido. This is more natural than just taking a little bit of hormone. We don't naturally make these plants in our body. That's actually not natural. So I would argue that taking the hormones is the most natural thing you can do.
I agree with you. And I absolutely see your point, and it makes sense. Like it makes sense to me because the whole like I just don't want to feel like trash things makes the most sense. I think that what I've heard, and again I've thought is like someone could come back to that and say, okay, well, but vitamin D is something that we all sort, yes, like our needs might change, but vitamin D is something that we always need to sort of keep up with. That's also a hormone, by the way, though. I mean, kind of, or yes, but, or whatever, right? Like whatever the vitamin is, whatever the thing is that we're supplementing. But there is this like difference with hormones with women in particular, I mean, both, but for the sake of the conversation, where there's this natural decline that is quote unquote natural, right? And so we should sort of ride that wave.
But
And not do like the supplementation, because I've heard that argument before.
but it's not natural. Like I said, our ancestors died when we were 35. Like the ovaries were never designed to live till 90. Like it was never like a thing where, so how do you know that Mother Nature designed it so that our hormones were supposed to drop off at 35? That's garbage. But we literally like are outliving like what we, because of our technologies, like helping us outlive what we were ever probably intended to live. And we have women in their 20s, and we do actually need to be thinking of it this way, where we're constantly making sure that the hormones are normal. We are assuming that if you're 22, your hormones are completely normal and they drop off at age 35 or 40. This is not the case. Like we're actually seeing 15-year-olds who may not even be spiking for ovulation like they're supposed to be because of these chemicals in the environment. We live in a completely different world than our great grandmothers did in terms of like environmental toxins and what we're inundated with, literally inundated with on a daily basis. And your receptors are open. So if you're 22 and you have zero estradiol present, your receptors are open for plastics, phthalates, pesticides, and chemicals, which they bind to you and cause cancer. Is cancer natural? Okay, well, if cancer is natural, then let's not treat it and let's just let you die from it because it's a natural thing. I mean, I'm being extreme, but it's like the argument doesn't make any sense. So, but if you were to always make sure that your receptors were covered and occupied by what's supposed to be there, which is its natural estradiol, the unnatural things won't be able to bind, which they will. Like your receptors like take things, they're recepting things. And so you want to make sure that it's just like iodine, for example, there's iodine receptors in your body. If you are deficient in iodine, then the iodine receptors are open, and what binds to them? Fluoride and halides like bromide. So bromide's found in grain and fluoride's found in like the water and toothpaste, obviously. And these are neurotoxins. They are toxic to you. And they bind instead of iodine. Iodine is supposed to bind, but if you were to always keep up and make sure that you had plenty of iodine in your diet and you're supplementing, then these are less likely to be toxic to you. So we need to look at it as like a protective mechanism and not this thing that's like an enemy. Like, so when people say, oh, this is not natural, they're viewing it as like not something that's protecting them.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And I really wanted to like nail that in because it has been a question of mine. And when you explain it to us in that fashion, it does make more sense, especially from like a history point of view. Two-part question. Number one, why do you feel, what is the cause of, about why do some women like see these very classic hormonal symptoms and then other women actually don't, maybe they don't see the hot flashes or they don't see like what we kind of would assume as symptoms, and I'm talking more perimenopausal at this point. Why does some women not see them? And then, well, actually, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to
Let's
stop
do
there.
that.
Yeah, let's do that because I feel like you're going to expand. Go ahead.
So, I mean, this is a great question. Women need to understand that vasomotor symptoms are like these classic symptoms that we've always attributed to menopause. We've done that because you can't attribute them to anything else. And so we cannot no longer gaslight the patient. I mean, it's like, okay, you're having hot flashes. Well, it's not because you're lazy or you're tired or whatever, like whatever reason we're trying to give women. We now have to like address it because there's nothing else that causes that. And that's historically where that came from. But what women need to understand that these symptoms are the last thing to happen. So the hypothalamus has receptors for estradiol, and it regulates our body temperature, among other things, like in controlling our libido and other things like that. But it does a lot thing with it makes us mammals. It makes us warm-blooded mammals that we can produce our own heat, regulate our body temperature. it is preserved by the body. So there, it literally, even if you have a tiny bit of estradiol in the body, it will allocate it to the hypothalamus so that you're able to maintain your body temperature. When you start to have a hot flash, it shows that you are so depleted that you can't even occupy your hypothalamus with the estradiol. You don't even become like a mammal anymore. It's not even just, it is like a sense of impending doom. If anybody's had one, they're highly uncomfortable. It's not just about sweating. These are really, really awful for women to experience. So one, it's like the cruelest thing to make women wait, but what they need to understand is that it means like that you are, there's a spectrum, that perimenopause or this like hormone depletion is a spectrum, and you are at the very extreme if you're having a hot flash because you've waited way too so long that your body is now like you're hot with hype, and it will happen. So all of the listeners that think that they can do herbs and be natural for as many years as they want, this is like coming for all of us. Like, and this is a universal thing that almost I've never met any woman who's been like, I've never had any hot flashes. This is the rare case where women do not experience it. This is some point in your life. So do you want to wait until you're 60 and start, and then they'll hot flash for decades. This isn't something that lasts for a year, because we've also given women this impression that it'll get better. It's just a year and then it's over. And so they'll try to push through it, but you'll continuously feel miserable for the rest of your life. And I think that women need to recognize that this is part of how your body functions. This is like, you need the estradiol to literally for your hypothalamus to work. Again, your gallbladder doesn't even work without, your digestion's not going to work without estradiol either. So the hypothalamus is depleted. So if you're 35 or 30 or 40 and 45 even, and you're not getting hot flashes and you're like, well, I don't have any hot flashes and I don't have vaginal dryness or whatever, it just means that your estrogen's high enough to prevent the hot flashes. Is about 100 picograms per milliliter is kind of where it's sitting. So you're not having these extreme symptoms, but how's your gut health? How's your sleep? How's your skin? How's your hair? How's your aging? How's your mood? So all of these things are in the dumper, but you're okay because you're having air quotes for those who can't see me, because you're not having hot flashes. So that's like probably answer your question, like why vaginal dryness is also something that's subjective. So women tend to use lube, right? So we will use like a fix. We won't, or we'll just say I'm not in the mood, and that's why like it tends to be, but they don't actually recognize that it's probably not as lubricated as it was when we were 15 or 25. And we get used to a new normal. This is just the new normal of what sex feels like. And then when women, so they never really come into my office saying they have vaginal dryness. But after you start hormone replacement therapy that's effective and really is treating libido and vaginal dryness, they're like, wow, I didn't realize I was so Sahara Desert down there. Like I actually didn't, because I had this like normal, and now it's like wild, and I feel like a 13-year-old girl and I actually have to wear like a liner because of this. And I'm being graphic, but it's also important that women normalize this, that this is actually a normal, healthy thing that we should be seeing. And if you don't feel like this all the time, like men get erections all the time when they have healthy levels of testosterone. Women need to have this function equally as much. And we don't, we get used to it being a certain way. So I wouldn't even latch onto the vaginal dryness for perimenopausal women. I don't even ask them that. You really need to focus on these more prominent symptoms, which is leaky gut health, high cortisol, your skin and hair, your sleep, your anxiety, your mood stability. Or did you develop an autoimmune disease? Because they'll sit for 5 years with Hashimoto's and not think that they have a hormonal problem. So they're like, well, they're just kind of like sitting in this like area where they're barely making any hormones. So waiting for the hot flashes, you know what I mean? Or waiting for their period to change. And that's another thing too, is that you can have a completely normal period and have zero hormones. So women will wait, they'll come to me and they'll be like, I have like 10 symptoms. They'll list like the main 10 symptoms and they'll be like, but my period's totally normal, right? So they're confused because they're waiting for this period to change, which I understand they've been told that they need to wait for this, but you don't need an irregular period. You don't need a light period. You don't even need a heavy period, completely like it was 10 years ago for you, because we have ovarian cycles and uterine cycles, and there's different mechanisms at play here. So again, it's part of the gaslighting of women. Hey, you have normal estrogen if you're bleeding. So this is inappropriate. So I think women need to know that it's a spectrum. They don't have to wait for these like really severe things to happen, which is vaginal dryness, hot flashes, and your period to change. The drop in hormones happens when you start noticing that you're aging. So I think women need to associate aging with a drop in hormones. Hey, I just don't feel like I look as good as I did 5 years ago. You're aging. That is it, girl. Like you're seeing the wrinkles. Your hair is thinning, girl. Like it is happening.
Why
And
are you
they,
talking about me? Why are
yeah.
you talking about me right now, friend? Come on.
Amazing. Like I can't go to the gym and exercise as much. It's like, girl, you're in it. Like this is it. Like just oh, so and also women, I've noticed, I love women. I work with like I am here advocating for women. We're in the most denial that
Oh,
men
totally.
will admit that their testosterone's lower decades before women will like they're like, I'm not perimenopausal. Like, no way that's me. Like it must be because I have two kids and I'm tired. They actually gaslight themselves. So as much as we want to blame healthcare practitioners, women blame other things. They don't want to admit that they're aging. Hey, the earlier you just admit it, the more you have control over it. Just admit it. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I want to feel younger and I do actually have control over this. And then you will empower yourself. Don't be in denial anymore.
I think it's funny because we were chatting a few weeks back, I said something like, well, I said something along the lines of like, well, I feel like I'm like sort of in the, for listeners that might be new, I'm 45, so I'm not like a spring chicken, but I'm also not, we're like incredibly old, right? But I thought, well, like, no, I feel like I'm pretty good in that area. And then like as we started to talk, my wheels started to turn, and I'm like, wait a second, hold on. And as I was sharing with you before we hit record, even just in the last couple of weeks, I've noticed some very significant things, right? Like in life and with my own body, where I'm just like, does my body know that we're getting ready to do this episode? Because this is just completely crazy. And so it's perfect timing. But I think you're right. I think like, because I sat with myself as I was prepping for the show, and I thought, like, is there shame associated with these changes? And I think, like for me even I would say no, like I get it, like I understand that this stuff just naturally happens, but then I sat a little bit longer and I thought to myself, I think there's like a little bit of an ego thing or a little bit of a pride thing or whatever that is that sits, and there's just something really sensitive about it at the end of the day because you don't want to see it. Maybe you just think that you're not, like it's just not the time yet. Like how could I already be there? And so I think that there might be a little bit of shame associated with it. And what you're saying is there should absolutely be none of that. It's just that for whatever reason, society has sort of put that in our minds, and we should just be approaching it mentally and emotionally from a different perspective. And it all changes with education and knowledge.
I agree with you that it doesn't mean that there's no weakness here.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling it at 45, imagine a 28-year-old who's recognizing that and so she's going to rush to do everything else. And starting hormone replacement therapy doesn't impact your fertility if you do it right as well. So like in this younger population, even if you're 40 and you're like, well, I just don't want to give up the idea of maybe having another baby. Like there are a lot of women in that, kind of window where they just don't know and they don't know their family planning. Hormone replacement therapy isn't like a final, okay, well, so it means they can no longer have any children. If that's an issue for some, which it is for some, they need to know that starting hormone replacement therapy won't impact this potentially. Like you can still ovulate while on it. And we need hormones to get pregnant too. So, but I do think there might be something with the pregnancy or fertility wrapped up in there, but it is just an aging or an ego or a pride. And it's okay. Like actually you should be prideful because that means that if you replace these, you're going to look better and feel better than all of your friends. You're going to do it. And you're going to be winning. And pretty soon everybody's going to asking you like, what are you doing? I want to do exactly what you're doing. So maybe you should look at it that way, that you've kind of found the secret, and there's nothing better than your health, right? This is something that like is the most important thing. And if you can look good and feel good, you're like above 40 is going to be amazing, because now we have financial stability, relationship stability, usually, sometimes. And then we just know everything. I wish I had knew everything I know now when I was in my 20s. And
Same.
now you can have the youthful feeling and know everything you know. It's like 40-year-old women can have it all, literally, like with hormone replacement therapy. And you can still, again, you can still do the functional medicine approach, just fine tweak things. You can still add peptides, like you can still continue your health journey. It's not like this all and done, that you are gonna like that. It's just like, why not? Why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you?
Before I move on and I ask you about administration and dosage and so forth, I feel like I need to pray about the articulation for this question, because I think in some ways you've answered it, but there's still something sticking that I really want to I would love an answer to, or your perspective. What do you have to say about the women who are significantly younger? So let's say 20s or 30s, okay? So they're still really in those younger years, and they there might be something going on in life, right? Like there's some sort of trauma or stress, and there's an adaptation response,
And so they're discovering that they have, or they're seeing these symptoms unfold. And maybe they don't have an issue with their hormones, but there's something else. And so their response, their symptoms, it's more of a protective mechanism versus like my hormones are actually like, they're actually like really being affected. I mean, granted, I guess they are being affected by stress, but what would you say? Like, is it just a blanket thing to just say, yeah, pretty much everybody, or is there something, are there cases where you're like, yeah, no, you actually wouldn't be a candidate for it because here you are, you're dealing with something, a season of whatever it is, stress or suffering or whatnot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and this is okay to try in younger patients. Like it's actually a very reasonable approach. So if your 18-year-old is just suffering from heavy painful periods, then what's going on in the like it's one symptom. So I think we need to look at like the whole person and what's going on as well. If she is just suffering from heavy painful periods and she's 21, then yeah, let's remove all of these phthalates and chemicals from her environment. Let's take that functional medicine approach because like she has the machinery that should be working. And so what is like preventing that from working properly? I think what's the problem is that we think a 30-year-old is young. And
Mm.
so 30-year-olds are young, but their hormones naturally drop off at age 30. So when you try the same approach that you would for a 20-year-old with a 30-year-old, that's not going to be as successful. Can you try it? Sure. Like, especially it's a relationship with the patient. It's her choice. Like if she's like, hey, I want like what we as a practitioner, it's not my responsibility to shove something down her, like a method down her throat. It's like what I need to do is like assess her goals and then I will help support them. So the problem is when the practitioners are saying, definitively that I will be able to heal your hormones with this approach. What they needed to say is, hey, you can try this. Like we can, this takes it an extreme. People can try this too. Like you literally be perfect with your diet, avoid all pesticides, remove all this stuff from the environment, try the functional medicine approach and still not get better. And that's like, if you're in your 20s, then it's a risk benefit. Hey, is this endometriosis like serving you? Okay, so how is hormone so is this
That's
endometriosis serving you? How is hormone replacement therapy more dangerous than endometriosis for in terms of fertility or like your livelihood? So it also depends on how serious the patient is. Like if she, in terms of her symptoms, if she has PMDD, endometriosis, like she's developing autoimmunity and she's having a very difficult time getting on top of her health, then why would you wait? Like you should intervene because intervention is like safer than like just trying this functional medicine approach. But so it's really depending upon how severe she is or I mean, some women are like, I'm sick and I have zero things going on. I have no stress or yeah. So you're right about assessing like the situation individually. But what I kind of want to get everybody away from is this, like a 35-year-old is going to be successful by healing her leaky gut and treating her perimenopause because she's perimenopausal. And it's very hard once the ovaries are over a certain point to get them to work. The machinery is just not capable of it. So you're asking the organ to perform and it's not going to. Again, an 18-year-old ovary is going to perform for you if you like give it the environment that it needs to, right? So it is contextual. I don't think a 30-year-old is young, like in this scenario that we're
right in
talking about.
this context. In this
Yes,
context,
exactly.
yeah.
So again, you can try it, and then you don't really see just the 30-year-old with just heavy painful periods. She's usually like, I'm losing my mind. Like if she's coming to you, she has a lot of symptoms going on. It's usually the younger one that you want to intervene with iodine and methylated B vitamins and really like assess these methylation pathways and make sure that you're getting on top of her. But if we were to truly do this right, we should be doing genetic testing then if we really care, which we don't. We don't care. I mean, like think about it. Like we ignore women and we just tell them it's just a period and this is how it is and until they're 50. So in a perfect world, we should be assessing young people what their methylation and SNP status are and look at their genetics and then help keep their hormones optimal their whole life. That would be the best approach. But does that make sense? It's not
Oh,
realistic.
it makes total sense. Yeah, it makes total sense. And I so agree with you, especially somebody who I'm pretty sure I haven't confirmed it via blood work, but I'm like 99% sure I have MTHFR because I can see the pattern, right? And it doesn't take almost doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what's going on, but it's like, wouldn't that be nice that like in your teens, even if you just had that test or what, just to kind of like know so that you can track methylation and be able to supplement accordingly. Like, wouldn't that be nice? Wow, what a concept.
Yeah, and the MTHFR is just the tip of the iceberg when you look
Yeah.
at the estrogen metabolism with COMT and knowing that certain women, and we talked about the severity or that spectrum of symptoms, like some women who present what they quote unquote early perimenopause, which I always laugh because they're 32 and it's like early. And I'm like, no, this is just perimenopause. It's not, again, they're not early. This is like
You're
normal.
not helping my mental state here.
He's
I mean, I'm
not
way past
young.
that, but so
No, I
I've
just
been in
feel like,
perimenopause for 15 years, is what you're saying.
yeah, I want women to feel like this is normal, like normalize
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
okay. You
Yeah.
may feel 32 and feel like you're an outlier, but you're not. You're not an outlier. This is normal. So I guess that's my goal with kind of like giving 30-year-old. But she may develop like more severe symptoms. So like her ADHD will get worse. So she already had like a really bad underlying ADHD. And then when she enters into this like drop off in hormones, it gets worse, anxiety gets worse, sleep. So she feels it like maybe more than the 40-year-old who has normal genetics and isn't as neurodiverse, for example, right? So like the fact that you're 45 and you're like, so I don't know, maybe you don't have some of that machinery that is more like, I don't want to, word to use, but it's really going to make somebody susceptible in their 20s or 30s more so than the 40 or 50-year-old who's made it a little
Just more
more,
resilient.
maybe resilience, like the word, but these machinery like work against women, like they methylate estrogen really quickly. So even if you're
Yeah.
making some of it, it's gone like in 4 hours and then you feel more depleted, right? So even if your ovaries are working, you're not able to maintain like the tone or the stability in your nervous system that you need in order to feel sane all the time. So there is genetic differences between all of us. And I would say like I fall into that category, which is why I know a lot about it, but it doesn't negate the fact that even if you don't have it and you're still 35 and you still feel it, that's okay too. You know what I mean? Like you don't need that. But I would say that those women who have COMT mutations or some other genetic mutation who has a methylation, it's even more important that they know their status because they can change their diet, they can change the vitamins, and they can do the functional medicine approach in addition to their hormone replacement therapy and really make an impact on their health and their wellness, like their mental health for sure.
Wow. So interesting. As I start to ask you about blood work, because, I think that some people are just really confused as to if they do the appropriate, well, first of all, what is the appropriate blood work to run? Because I don't think that that's always done correctly. And also, if they see that their blood work comes back, quote unquote, normal, but they're still having symptoms, would they still be a good candidate for HRT?
Yes, because normal, quote unquote, normal, we talked about what normal is for established reference intervals. Okay, so when we established these, the estradiol reference intervals that most manufacturers use for labs was based on 49 women only and 150 men. There were more men in the study than there were women. So women need to know that this is normal, like that is that normal? So when we get pregnant, estrogen levels get up to like 40,000 potentially, like anywhere between 20 and 40,000 picograms per milliliter. Okay, that's not a lot. The upper limit of normal is 500 picograms per milliliter. But we see that in ovulating women in their 20s, it's probably closer to 1,000. So like we're really pushing women like really low. We're suppressing them and making sure that their estrogen stays really, really low. And then for most hormone replacement therapy regimens will keep you around 100 or 150 picograms per milliliter. We're not even getting you up to the 500 picograms. And we're not even close to anything that you'd experience during the first trimester of pregnancy. So the physiological capabilities of women and the needs are not being met or recognized. And the labs are not caught up. Like I'm a laboratory scientist as well. And they're like, it's embarrassing. Like, so we're just not there. And then the problem with the labs is that half the time they don't even order progesterone or the right labs, right? They'll like in a perimenopausal women, doctors will just order testosterone and be like, well, that one's low, but they won't get anything else. And then they'll start to replace something like testosterone in a younger woman. And this may not be appropriate for her. She may gain weight. She may lose her hair. Is she going to get a libido at first? Maybe. Probably, but she's going to have a lot of side effects from that exogenous testosterone unless we look at her whole picture and we replace estrogen and progesterone too, right? We need to do everything for her. So we silo women because we're afraid of estrogen. So we won't give it to her, but we'll give her testosterone. Make it make sense. Like make it make sense. Like I genuinely ask all the doctors out there that are willing to give women testosterone and afraid to give her estrogen, like what's going on with this like thought process, because it's an important hormone for her, but it's not her primary hormone. It would be like me giving men estrogen because men need estrogen. It's like important for their heart disease and their heart and their weight. I just can't anyway. So the labs cause more problems sometimes for women. Like they'll get them and then they think they're normal because something on a piece of paper that's quantitative told them that they were normal. And so they go even longer without help because they think they're normal. And do you want to be normal for a 45-year-old? Or do you want to be normal as a 25-year-old, right? Because if you're going to do hormone replacement therapy, you want to look more like that 25-year-old. That's the goal of hormone replacement therapy. It's not to keep you at your 45-year-old self. You're normal compared to all your friends. Great. You're the same as every other 45-year-old who's in perimenopause. That's what the lab is telling you. How is that helping you? So, at our practice, we do not require them. We'll go over them with you and we'll put them in context for you. But women are adults, and hormone replacement therapy is safer and natural than birth control. But yet birth control, we don't do labs for birth. I mean, like literally nothing will treat you with birth control like it's candy. So women need to know that it's okay to just try hormone replacement therapy to see if you like it. It's out of your system in like 48 hours at the most. Like, is it really short half-lives? It's like gone. If you don't like it, there's no harm. Honestly, you just like stop it and it's gone. So they need to stop thinking that it's like, I have to have this definitive answer or diagnosis of menopause or perimenopause before I start hormone replacement therapy. But if you were to get labs, I guess I could be like, an FSH would be a really good one to get, because an FSH is a snapshot of a whole 30 days as opposed to just a one-time measurement. And then getting this FSH like on the first part of your cycle so that you can see this, and you want to get more than one, but if it's an 8 or above, it is a sign that your ovaries are struggling. It's a sign that your brain doesn't feel like there's enough hormone around for you. So it's a sign of, and it doesn't compare you to every other 45-year-old out there. It's just what your brain thinks. Because if your brain feels like you don't have enough hormone, it will release this FSH in order to stimulate your ovaries. So if your FSH is above 8, it means your brain is freaking out, if that makes sense. So like kind of put it that way. And then you don't need to be compared to 49 other women, or you don't need to be said that you're quote unquote normal. What is normal? So my brain is telling me that I need more estrogen and progesterone here. So an FSH is something that women should really try to get, as well as progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone, and LH too. And these are just like basic ones. There's obviously this whole panel that everybody can get, but this is the bare minimum.
Got it. Wow. Well, it's interesting because as you were speaking just now, I was thinking about my past, and you were talking about like, yeah, giving testosterone, and they're giving testosterone versus like not giving them estrogen, and like make that make sense. And I had a memory that popped up for me that I haven't thought about in a long time, which is when I was in my late 20s and early 30s, I actually was on a low dose transdermal testosterone, very low, and also doing progesterone to help regulate. And I was on that for actually several years and then ended up getting off of it. But looking back, gosh, knowing what I know now, it would be so interesting to see what changes, because I was definitely struggling with other things at the time. But if that was having an impact in a negative fashion versus a positive fashion, because I don't know if the whole entire picture was discussed or looked at. So it's just really interesting, sort of like that triggered my memory. And honestly, I had forgotten about it.
I think that hormones are protective no matter what, really. And so like it probably benefited you, but it wasn't the best for you. Like if you would have just really had a robust treatment, you would have gotten better, like felt better. You know what I mean? So I think when women are like like if they're on hormone replacement therapy now and they're listening, is it the best? And I think that's what, like, yes, you probably felt a little bit better with your oral progesterone. You're like able to sleep. It's like knocking you out, or you're getting a little bit of testosterone, and everybody's like upset, right? I get people really upset at me, like, I love my testosterone and oral progesterone. Like it's helped me so much. And yes, it does. Like I remember taking oral progesterone for years, and I even did a little bit of testosterone for years. And it's like, you get some gains. Yeah. Is it your most optimal thing for you because you're female? No. Yeah. I think that women deserve like the best, and they should. And so you should demand that. And you can just think about your current regimen. Are you piecing together like 5 different things and you're still have some bloating and I'm still not losing weight and I still I'm not really like gaining muscle or where I want to be? It's because you're not on the best thing. And so, yes, do you feel a little bit better? I absolutely, can you imagine how good you would feel if you were on something that was appropriate, like, and got you up to like the right levels? You would feel amazing. You would feel equivalent to how men feel when they're appropriately treated with testosterone. So women just need to demand that optimal state. We're basically like giving them breadcrumbs or scraps and like, here, be happy. And women are happy because they do feel a little bit better. They are getting like a little bit, but it's really like sad and depressing that we aren't giving them the best.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, that's a perfect segue actually to your preferred delivery method and delivery system and dosing, because I understand that dosing probably varies, but you're saying that topical or oral is really not the best in general. Can you explain that and give your preference?
Yeah. So topicals, I think we used to do this for men. Like women on the call can remember. If you understood how different you're being treated than men, you would be really, really upset. Like we used to give men topicals and we found out that only 30% of it absorbs. And what happens to the rest of it? It gets all over the kids and like causes pubic hair growth on like 4-year-olds. And so we stopped doing that. Like any provider that's doing that's not okay because it does get all over the feeds and the towels and kids and pets like dogs. So we know that only 30% of topical hormones absorb through the skin and the rest of it contaminates your entire household. We don't give men oral testosterone because it gets degraded in the liver and is extremely liver toxic. Okay. So like we don't microdose men with like a tiny amount of testosterone cream and have them rub it on their testicles so that they can treat erections. We like, and I say it like it's like we're laughing because it's like absurd. It's absurd. Like we would never treat a man like. So why do we treat women like this? It's absurd. It's almost laughable that we would be like, here, put this tiny amount of vaginal estrogen cream just to barely help your vaginal dryness. That's it. Okay, so we give you oral estrogens and oral progesterones, which are heavily broken down by the liver, very liver toxic, cause toxic metabolites. And women are like, yay, I'm sleeping better because of the oral progesterone. And I'd want to say that this is because we've given you very liver toxic metabolites that are putting you to sleep. It's the metabolites that are making you fall asleep. It is not the progesterone that's making you fall asleep. So women are told that it's helping them sleep because the progesterone's in it, but 80% of that is actually just anesthesia that's like knocking you out, which is why women have a lot of side effects from the oral progesterone. Women with PMDD get worse. You'll never be able to treat most women with an oral progesterone. When we talk about progesterone intolerance, it's not their own hormone that they can't tolerate. It's the formula. It's the way you're trying to get it into the body that's making her crazy. And that's true. Like you'll get like grogginess the next day, or she'll feel like she's going crazy. So oral and topical, like no, we're hitting the liver hard, or we're contaminating our families. Also, when you try to put progesterone on the skin, it goes right into the lymphatic system. So we don't really know like if this is protecting the uterus in the same way, right? So we do need to protect the uterus. The uterus is like one of the things that we need to protect, but progesterone is needed all over the body. This is it. So we have pellets, which are really hard to control. You end up a lot of women on testosterone dominance this way, right? Because you put a little pellet in and you can't take it back out. And initially they feel better, but then you start chasing that and elevating it. And then you end up with like hair loss and hair growth on your face. And you're kind of turning into a man just slightly over time but you're feeling better, right? But it's like, why women, you do not need to like do this to feel better. And so plus it's like painful and expensive and like, it's not optimal, like just with the pellet, there's a lot of drawbacks on that. I know it's like easy for some women, and then injections are not quite there for women either. And we do have to cycle and consider this like cycling. So there's not the formula as I kind of went through them really quickly, but the one formula that I hold on to is vaginal delivery. And I know that everybody's thinking, but vaginal is not systemic. Vaginal is just local. And so anybody that says that vaginal is a delivery, it's not a dose. So if a physician tells you that vaginal cream is only local and it's only for vaginal dryness, they are basing that on the studies that were done on low dose, like very, very low dose estradiol cream that was designed for only vaginal dryness. And when they did a study, they were proving that it was such a low dose that it didn't go into the bloodstream. And this is fear-based. This was based on the fact that we thought that estrogen caused cancer and we wanted to still treat vaginal dryness. So we put a tiny amount in the cream and then we showed everybody that it wasn't going to give them breast cancer or get into the bloodstream so nobody would panic, right? So that we could still help women with their genitourinary symptoms because they're so devastating. I mean, we're talking about urinary incontinence, infections, like keeping women out of the hospital with urosepsis. So the vaginal creams came out of that, which is a good thing, but we need to stop pretending like this delivery is like only local. It's definitely going into the bloodstream. And if you raise the dose enough, then it's going to be a systemic delivery and it avoids the liver and you avoid contaminating your entire family because it's vaginal, right? There you have a spouse or whatever partner, but you can mitigate this. And it's, so not to get into the details there, but you're definitely not going to get it on your kids or your pets or like your laundry, which is like the biggest part of the contamination. And then you're avoiding the liver, but you're also making you're allowing nature to do what it probably is intended, which is to do the metabolism. So like your uterus is like going to take the progesterone, make metabolites that go to the brain, make metabolites that protect itself. And this is probably like your ovaries make hormones and then your uterus metabolizes it and then it sends it to the rest of the body. So why we should mimic that. So vaginal delivery is a very powerful way to have a controlled, like more controlled. It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect, but more stable. So like women who are on our therapy will say that they feel more stable, right? Like that they don't have like these ups and downs necessarily. They feel on top of it, that they can, especially for something like mood or vaginal bleeding or things that like tend to be severe in perimenopause, which I would say the number one complaint is like mood and sleep and heavy bleeding, like with the bleeding starts to get heavier. And this is what we're trying to address a lot with hormone replacement therapy is heavy bleeding and mood instability and sleep.
Yeah. Wow. So question about side effects. Would there be any negative side effects? I mean, we obviously know what the positive effects would be, but are there people that experience negative side effects, and what would they be? Or is there a class of people that just that would be like, no, vaginal delivery is just not good for them?
What we're looking at is just less side effects, right? You want to like find a delivery where you're less likely to get the side effect. So it doesn't mean that you're eliminating them, but hormone replacement therapy for women is always going to have something, but it's quote unquote not a side effect. What it is it usually highlights something that you need to address like later. So for example, if you get breast tenderness when you start hormone replacement therapy, like a good systemic hormone, and it can happen with vaginal or topical, any patches. Again, patches are topical. So it is a sign that you're iodine deficient, that you need iodine because you have all this density in fibrocystic breast disease. So does it mean that you need to change your dose or your formula? No, it means you need to treat your underlying fibrocystic breast disease with iodine. So what if you have heavy cramping and bleeding when you first start hormone replacement therapy? Does that mean that your formula is wrong or your dose is wrong? No, it means that you're probably methylated B vitamin deficient or iodine. It's like there's something there that we need to address. And this usually just goes away in 10 days anyway. So you will get, cramping and bleeding. This is not a side effect. This is something where your body is like adjusting to having hormones again when you've probably gone a decade without them. And now you're introducing something, your body does have to adjust, build receptors, get used to having the hormones again. And men experience it too. They'll get a little bit fatigued when they start testosterone. So women can get fatigued at first, and then it gets better. So we call it more of like an adjustment period. If it's a true side effect, then we would look at it. But like things like bloating, as I mentioned, this can get worse. Okay, is this a side effect or is this because your gut health took a hit for years because you tried your functional medicine approach for years and you ate a bunch of fiber and didn't address your gallbladder and now your diet's like, and you need certain things to help heal this bloating while you're on hormone. And it's usually that. So usually you have the body's like wakes up and it's like, you need to address your gut. And that's where I say in this functional medicine approach could come in after you start the hormone replacement therapy to be like, what is your body telling you? It's not whispering anymore. It's like yelling. It's like screaming that you need to address your breasts. You need to address your uterine health or your gut health. What if you have, these are like the three main symptoms that you might get that really need addressed. There's some other rare ones, like what if you're iron deficient? If you're severely iron deficient, then you can have other things when you start hormone. I like to think of hormone replacement therapy. It's not going to like fix all your stuff. You need the hormones. You need them to lose weight and be lively and have your livelihood. But it doesn't mean that you're not still going to have to do some healing on other parts of your body, and stop looking at it as like a side effect. Like these are natural hormones that your body naturally produces. So it's not a drug. It's not a medication. We call them side effects, but it's really like an awakening what you need to address. Like, and we try to, women are like pretty receptive to that. And it's also like, hey, this will get probably better if you just let it sit for a week. And it sometimes does. Like sometimes that symptom will just go away as the body, like as neurotransmitters adjust, like serotonin raises, dopamine raises, so and there's like nuances with if you have different genetics, as we talked about, there's like nuances, but it's important to have like a provider that is knowledgeable that will help you and not just be like reactive. Oh my gosh, we need to stop it or change your dose or anything. This is where women can chase and be really frustrated with hormone replacement therapy when they get a lab and then, okay, the lab says something, or I have a symptom and they're changing it every 2 weeks. If you change your hormone replacement therapy that often, you're never going to get better. You have to kind of keep it stable. And then like, you know what I mean? Otherwise you are going to be exhausted spending money and trying to chase this. So stop looking, and This is really important that you bring this up because women do feel like I'm doing damage. Now my bloating's worse. Oh my gosh, I thought hormone replacement therapy is going to help me, and now I'm like worse. And so they back off of it and they think that it's dangerous. And instead, they need to look at it as like, no, 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 whatever the hormones are doing, I promise it's protective. It's probably helping you. Why don't we address your gut health? And then you take that function. And that's where I really feel that functional medicine approach comes in. One does not replace the other. They complement each other. And this is how they do that.
Well said. And that is exactly why I brought it up. And I think that the term that came to my mind, or the couple terms that came to my mind when you were saying, like, well, we need to stop looking at this stuff like side effects, right? Or negative. It's really the body's adaptation response, or it is literally a response. And I think that we can, I talk about this a lot on the show, but that's the same with anything. It's like when you get anything, right? Like a fever, it's a response. It's an adaptation to whatever the body is being challenged with at the time. A lot of things are actually not negative side effects, unless we're talking about like, an actual pharmaceutical drug that's giving you a negative side effect or giving you something that's artificial. But it really is just the body giving you information. And I think that that's really important. And that's exactly why I brought up this question, because I was hoping that you were going to say, well, what is a side effect though? Right? Like, what are we really talking about here? Like, is it really a side effect, or is it just the body going, wait a second, here's another flag for you? And not necessarily to scare you, but just, hey, we need some attention over here. So let's address it. Right. And I really like the fact that you brought up iron and these different nuances, because yeah, my question too, like, just because you brought it up, is like, what if someone's ferritin is really low, or what if they have an iron recycling issue or something like that? Like, would they automatically see a quote unquote effect, right? Or an adaptation response when they start HRT?
Yeah, iron deficiency. The trick is that we need estradiol to absorb iron. So when women become like severely iron deficient, they're bleeding a lot. So it's also showing us possibly bleeding a lot, which shows that they're missing hormones there because they're bleeding heavily. But also there are little gatekeepers in the stomach that dictate whether or not we can, because iron is actually toxic, like free iron. So we need to control the amount that we're absorbing, and estradiol actually controls that. So women will, this is partly why women are so iron deficient. The heavy bleeding every month, or bleeding in general, plus the fact that they're low in estrogen, being told that they're not, but they are low in estrogen and they can't absorb it even from red meat. So even if they try to eat red meat, if you're iron deficient and you start hormone replacement therapy, what just happens is like you get fluid retention. So like this can be like pretty severe, like fluid retention that's hard to get rid of until you address the iron deficiency. But the reason why it's challenging is because other things can cause fluid retention too. Like what if, we've put a little bit of burden on your thyroid at first, and your thyroid needs to adjust, and then you're getting progesterone alone can cause fluid retention. Usually this like gets better really quickly within a few days, but you can see this aldosterone pathway like react, and then the fluid retention is like disturbing because they're trying to lose weight. Every person that's ever started hormone replacement therapy is like already weighted and they're trying to lose weight. So it freaks I get it. Like, and plus it's really uncomfortable. So it causes joint pain and reason we don't want the fluid retention. So, but it's an unknown, like we always try to address but again, they think it's the hormones. I'm worse off now, and it's your formula. It's it's the dose, or and like, no, girl, you need to eat we need to dig in and find out why you got fluid, because it's actually not that common to get the fluid retention. So they don't understand that they're an outlier and that there's a problem here that it's either iron deficiency or your thyroid needs to be checked. Now we need to get into a functional medicine approach to make sure your thyroid is okay. Do we need to address the thyroid, or and women also don't understand that they avoid salt in their diet because they think salt is going to cause fluid retention. Not me. I like the salt on everything, right? They're like, I love salt. Like, if we like women out there, what salt does is it brings fluid into your vascular system and actually keeps your blood pressure up. It will keep you from passing out. And so they avoid salt. But what they don't realize is that carbohydrates and insulin is what causes the fluid retention. So they'll eat a big spaghetti dinner and they'll blame the salt or whatever. They'll eat a big spaghetti dinner and they'll be like, your thyroid harm, or your HRT is causing all this fluid retention. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it was like your pasta dinner that's causing fluid retention. So they do need to recognize that insulin is a major driver. Insulin will drive fluid right into your tissue and cause this fluid retention. So if you have any amount of insulin resistance when you start hormone replacement therapy too, this will show up as fluid retention. So again, everybody blames. So I love that, nobody thinks about hormones. Nobody blames the hormones until it's too late. And then once you start hormones, everything's the hormones' fault. Like you get like any little thing that goes on, like I got a viral infection and they're like, yeah, it's because I started HRT. And you're like, no, it's not it's not hormones doing that. So it is kind of funny that, but it's just human nature. That is like a natural thing for humans to like kind of draw, you know what I mean? We laugh about it and I don't
Of course.
love, it's normal for women or people to automatically think that that's what's causing their problem.
Well,
But
and
it,
not everybody, oh, sorry to cut you off. I was going to
no,
say,
it's like
like, not,
information, as you said.
yeah, like, not everybody is like, not everybody's out there to go get like a doctorate in this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why we have people like you. But here's the thing is that a lot of women, they might have doctors who have great bedside manner, or they really trust them to some degree, or they deliver their children, or whatever the case, but they still don't have the appropriate like answer or knowledge or training in like this area. And it's so it becomes so difficult because it's like, yeah, we should be able to quote unquote trust the experts, but a lot of times the experts don't really know. So what would you say to women who are like, okay, well, yeah, this sounds like something great, but and I love my doctor, but I just don't know if my doctor's going to like be on board the same way that Dr. Sarah's on board.
Exactly. No, and most doctors aren't trained. So we need to stop expecting them to be too. Like it's okay. You can go to your doctor for your urinary tract infection and your cold and take your kids there and you can still have your primary care physician. They don't need to do everything. They don't need to be your hormone therapy doctor too. And I think a lot of doctors are put off by this. They feel like insulted that they have to be expected to do this. Don't make them do it. It's okay. They don't need to know everything. Like surgeons, OBGYNs are surgeons. Like you need a baby delivered, you need your life saved. If you have a gyne emergency, you go to
Great
this
for that. Yeah.
for that. They
Yeah.
don't need to know hormone replacement therapy too. And so if you feel like you're getting misinformation or just that they're not comfortable with it, you're kind of getting that vibe from them, then you go to a provider that is. So for example, we're online like in 50 states. And so if you wanted to start the formula, you don't have to have your doctor start it. We'll just start it for you and we'll follow you. And our doctors who are completely on board and knowledgeable will follow you. So the trick is that you need to find a specialist. So you would never go to a primary care physician for your back pain, really. You'd actually probably go to you'd go to a specific person for your back pain, or you go to a specialist. So hormone replacement therapy is no different. You go to somebody who specializes in it specifically. And then even if you go to a specialist and you still feel like you're not getting better, and it could be the formula, or you haven't been able to resolve some of these adjustments that we've talked about, like the bloating or fluid retention or crazy, like women feel like they're going mad, stuff like that. If that happens to you, then trying to switch the formula or the provider team who might be able to give you some different suggestions. This is what you could do. And it is a journey. So it's okay if you started, like I said, I tried patches and I literally tried everything for like over years. And that is okay if that's your journey. As long as you find that your formula that works for you.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Well, you're certainly passionate about it all and it's like I told you before we started, it's like I feel like this is going to be really enlightening and really kind of diffuse, I think, for some people, a lot of questions that they might have. And you're definitely firm on your perspectives and I respect it. And I think that there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. Before we sort of land the plane, is there anything else that you would like to say before I go into detail about where people can find you, where they can learn more, and if they're interested in furthering their journey? According to sort of what you've got going on. So just kind of last thoughts, last words.
I don't have any. I mean, we covered a lot.
We did.
I'm really glad everybody got something from it.
Yeah, I know. I certainly did. Like I said, it's kind of perfect timing for me. So there's a lot for me to think about as well. But like you said, it's a journey. And I think that like the bottom line too, is that like we're as women, as cliche as it is, I'm going to say it, like we're not broken. We're definitely not broken. There's, our bodies are just adapting to the information that's coming in, and we don't always have the right resources in front of us or the right information. And, it's like the more we learn, hopefully at least we have informed consent. At least we have information, and then we can make full decisions, because at the end of the day, it really is us, right? Like we can still choose, like no one's forcing anybody's hand here. It's just like, why don't we just have all the information and then be able to make decisions accordingly? Because we deserve that, I think, especially in today's world where we are inundated with stress and inundated with responsibility and inundated with just, honestly, just too much. So I just really appreciate everything that, that we've discussed. And it's like I said, it's been helpful for me. And where can people find you? Where are you on social media, website, et cetera? And then you also have, I think, like a little offering for listeners.
Yeah. If you want to learn more or just do some more research, our social channels are Sarah Daccarett, MD, or Inner Balance, MD, which is INNER Balance, MD. And the website is the same. It's www.innerbalance.com. We have a lot of information there. You can reach even out to like our customer service or something if you have questions. And you can get started on the product, for example, and meet with our doctors after. And again, you have to meet with us to change doses or do anything, even though it's could be easy to get. You need to meet with us in order to make any changes or things like that. So you will have a clinical team at your disposal too to ask questions, and we have a clinical team that answers questions. And we have a community within our app. So if you're not quite ready for hormone replacement therapy, you could try another product. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a way to get more information until you are ready and feel good about the decision about a treatment like hormone replacement therapy. So we have other products like libido, and I'm just saying this as kind of like something that's a little bit less, it feels like less committal, that you can come in and then get information from the community, get information from the clinical team, things like that while you're making your decision on HRT. And then I'll provide like a coupon for $50 off the first month that you can provide like in your notes for everyone too as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Like always, my friends, all of this information will be provided for you in the show notes. I will make sure and list everything. And I'm sure that if you do have any questions, you can reach out to Dr. Sarah and her team via, the socials or her website. And of course, if you can't find anything, you can always reach out to me and I will do my best to point you in the right direction. Again, lots to think about, very informative, very enlightening. Thank you so much for coming on. It has really been a pleasure. And like I said, lots to think about. So again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining us today. I will see you on the next episode. And until then, I hope you have a blessed rest of your week.